Welcome to the LA County Department of Arts and Culture CIAG application workshop. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Adelaide Kuhn, and I am Grant Program Manager for the Community Impact Arts Grant Program. Today, we will provide you with helpful tips, a breakdown of the application requirements, and a step-by-step overview of the application process. Let's dive in. As we begin, I want to pause and acknowledge that the County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Quiche, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We're dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, Gabrieleño Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, Gabrieleño Band of Mission Indians, Quiche Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanaic.lacounty.gov. The goal of the Community Impact Arts Grant Program is to support the complex arts ecology of Los Angeles County by increasing access and strengthening the quality of arts programming wherever it happens, in health and human services, criminal and restorative justice, community and economic development, workforce development, and environmental justice, to name just a few of the types of organizations who have been funded in the past. CIAG recognizes the value of the arts as a vital tool for civic problem solving across a range of issue areas. It's designed to promote and highlight cross-sector strategies and support organizations that provide high-quality arts programs as part of their larger mission to provide services to individuals and communities outside of the arts. The program enables these organizations to deliver a wide range of cultural services to county residents that support arts and culture throughout the region. By mapping the organizations we have funded through this program, we have found that they are offering arts services in areas that are not typically served by traditional nonprofit arts organizations. Organizational eligibility is extremely important. So if you have any questions about this, please reach out before you begin your application. We never want someone to spend their time working on an application for a program that ultimately they are ineligible for. Organizations must be a 501c3 nonprofit, a municipality, a tribal government, or have a Model A fiscal sponsor agreement with an eligible organization. CIAG funds LA County-based organizations whose primary mission is to provide services other than arts programming. This is determined by more than 50% of the applicant's organizational budget devoted to non-arts related programs. If you are an arts organization, you should be applying for OGP, or the Organizational Grant Program. You must have an operating budget of more than $25,000. Your principal offices must be in Los Angeles County as determined by the address on your organization's 990. And if you are a nonprofit, you must have a functioning board with more than half of its members residing in California. In terms of your organization's arts programming, you must show a minimum of 2 full and consecutive years of arts-based programs with a minimum of 4 arts programs per year. Failure to meet any of the eligibility requirements for both the organization as well as the project will result in the disqualification of an application and applicant. Please make sure you review the CIAG guidelines thoroughly. If you have any questions about your eligibility, I encourage you to reach out to discuss with me directly. I'm very happy to discuss. We will be hosting office hours every Monday, and you will find that link on the CIAG page of our website. CIAG provides project-based funding, not general operating support. CIAG is a one-year grant, so make sure your project fits within the timeline of the 2026-27 grant cycle, which is July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. Competitive applications will show that they are providing arts programming for communities that otherwise would not have access to the arts. If you're providing arts education programming, it must take place either outside of school or after regular school hours. Ineligible projects include scholarly research, anything taking place outside of LA County, programs for private members, and the purchase of capital expenses. Travel outside of LA County cannot be included as part of your grant-funded project expenses. However, transportation expenses for travel within LA County is allowed. CIAG does not fund hospitality, endowments, or cash reserves. Projects that are religious or evangelic in nature, as well as university presenting series or general funding for museums or galleries. Please note, housing and hospitality expenses can be a part of the one-to-one match that your organization is responsible for showing under the project expenses. Highlighting some changes this year, applicants will be required to attach a screenshot from the California Secretary of State showing active status. Applicants may find and download a certificate or take a screenshot at the California Secretary of State website. This list provides you with an outline of all of the supporting materials you will need to prepare prior to applying to the CIAG program. Your financial documents should match, meaning the same fiscal year and the same reported revenue amount within 10%. Please note that the completed audit is only required of applicants with annual budgets of $2 million or more. Artistic documentation is a crucial element for evaluating the artistic quality of the applicant, and the project panelists pay very close attention to that. So reminder, provide the context of the submission in the artistic description section, and this includes, as applicable, the title, location, artist, dates, and participant impact. A minimum of 1 and a maximum of 2 artistic samples must be included with the application, and we strongly recommend using recent examples. Optional support materials include letters of recommendation, a sample lesson plan, and promotional materials. Now we're going to discuss the review criteria and how awards are calculated. I will start by spending a little time briefly going over the department's work with cultural equity and inclusion. In 2015, the Board of Supervisors' adoption of a motion to create a framework for advancing cultural equity among the region's arts and culture sector. In 2016, the department began that journey through a public process. Several town halls throughout the county were held, stakeholder focus groups, research, and an advisory committee. Those were all put together. In 2017, the Cultural Equity and Inclusion Report was released that summarized the 13 recommendations that rose out of that process, which were subsequently approved by the Board of Supervisors. In 2019, the department began a process to put together the county's own cultural policy. In 2020, that policy passed, as did a motion put forth by the Board of Supervisors to establish an anti-racist policy agenda, which is now the basis for the Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Initiative. In 2022, Board adopted the Cultural Policy Strategic Plan and the Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion new strategic plan for implementing these goals on the screen. These last two pieces together provide a foundation for pushing our vision even further as we continue to strive and foster diversity, equity, access, and inclusion in all that we do through a deeper commitment to reversing structural and systemic inequality in LA County. The Community Impact Arts Grant stems directly from the Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative. So how you address your organization's own DEI work with the communities you serve and your arts programming will play a large role in panelists' review of your application. In 2021, the Board of Supervisors approved ongoing funding at $750,000 to sustain the CIAG program. The motion signified a recognition of the impact of the program and the county's ongoing investment in the arts and in its cultural policy, which integrates art services into cross-sector county work. The CIAG applications are reviewed and scored using these 5 criteria. Make sure you read through this carefully and are addressing this throughout your narrative responses. Criterion 1, has the highest points value assigned. A project with exceptional artistic merit engages qualified and diverse arts or cultural professionals, provides arts experiences that expose participants to new perspectives, provides opportunities for engagement in the creative process, and demonstrates cross-sector understanding, both supporting the arts and advancing community priorities. Criterion 2, an organization with exceptional organizational readiness, managerial excellence, and fiscal responsibility recruits and retains an engaged, diverse, and qualified board, staff, contractors, and/or volunteers, and has an accumulated deficit of less than 20% of their total operational expenses for 2 or more years. The organization addresses and is taking steps to integrate and reflect the values of cultural equity and inclusion, highlighting any progress made over the last 2 or more years at the board leadership and staff level. Competitive applications will address all application questions and provide complete information. Criterion 3, an exceptional project plan will outline all aspects of the project with significant detail, including a project timeline. It also includes a realistic project budget with accurate cost and income revenue information. Criterion 4, exceptional project evaluation highlights the goals and objectives of the project, along with an assessment plan that will be used to measure project impact and success. Criterion 5, a demonstration of exceptional knowledge of target constituents and needs will include a detailed description of the organization's community, including demographic information, and shows how the organization is responsive to the needs of the community served, with a particular emphasis on individuals and communities for whom the arts are not readily accessible. The organization addresses and is taking steps to integrate and reflect the values of the cultural equity and inclusion, highlighting any progress or efforts made over the last 2 or more years. These are examples of CIAG-funded grantees who offer services that support their communities. They highlight the demonstrated success of their projects in part through the images they've shared in the application. They all shared visual representations of the populations they serve, which panelists really appreciate seeing. Faces are not shown for protected groups as necessary, so that they can still share images of participants engaging in the art program, even of protected groups. The County of Los Angeles requires all applicants to Department of Arts and Culture grant programs to complete a contribution and agent declaration form to comply with the Levine Act, SB 1439, new California legislation effective January 1st, 2023, that prohibits certain appointed and elected local officers, including members of the Board of Supervisors, from taking part in decisions about awarding contracts, grants, licenses, or permits if the officer received a political contribution of more than $250 in the past 12 months from a bidder, proposer, or applicant, or the bidder, proposer, or applicant's paid representative or agent. To comply with the Levine Act, California state law requires you to disclose information about contributions made by certain individuals, such as paid employees, paid agents, or paid board members that represent your organization or agency. You will disclose any required information by completing the contribution and agent declaration form, a digital form that is a required component of our online grant application. Information is being collected for transparency and compliance purposes only. Reporting contributions will not disqualify you from the grant program, and your answers will not be part of the panelist review in scoring your application. Failure to respond to required questions will result in immediate disqualification of your application to the grant program without exception. No grace period will be provided to complete this requirement. Applicants should be prepared to dedicate extra time to the process of reviewing the form, collecting and assessing the data, and preparing accurate responses. Additional resources, including the questions you will be asked in the application, an FAQ, and registration links for informational workshop sessions about the Levine Act are available on our website. If anyone has served on a grants panel, you know it is the quickest way to learn what makes a successful application. Applications are reviewed and scored by a grant peer review panel made up of artists, art professionals, community members, and others with knowledge and professional qualifications in the arts and with familiarity of the Los Angeles region's art sector. All applicants are able to schedule a panel feedback call that we will provide starting in July next year. The call will include notes and constructive feedback from your application's panel review. We're always seeking new panelists, so if you're interested, please send me an email. Note that you won't be a CIAG panelist during the cycle that you are applying for funding in, but you could serve on a panel for our other grant program, OGP. Here is a bit on how grant award amounts are calculated. The most important thing to keep in mind is that the amount awarded is much less than the amount requested in the application. An organization's request amount is multiplied by their panel score to determine your maximum request amount. Final awards are then determined by dividing the total CIAG allocation across the whole grant pool, the whole pool of grantees who receive fundable panel scores in that cycle. Here is an example of how this formula works with real numbers. Note the number of eligible applications in the 25-26 cycle was 89, and 88 grantees received a fundable score. In this example, an organization requested a maximum of $20,000 and received a panel score of 94. This results in a fundable request of $18,800, which was then reduced by dividing the $500,000 across the full pool of eligible and fundable grantees in the 25-26 cycle. Grantees in the 25-26 cycle were awarded 34% of their fundable request, or in the case of this example, $6,392. Please note each year the number of grantees has been growing steadily, so in all likelihood, next year awarded organizations will receive less than 34% of their fundable request. We will now dive into the online grant portal called SurveyMonkey Apply. All applicants will submit application and grant materials in the SurveyMonkey Apply online grant management system. If you've used SurveyMonkey Apply to apply for any of our grants before, all you need to do is log in, click Programs on the navigation bar on top, find the Art find the CIAG program and then click the green Apply button, which will open a new application. If your organization is new to the system and has not yet created an account, I'm going to walk you through those steps now. First, you will visit our dedicated SurveyMonkey Apply website at apply-lacdac.smapply.io. You will find this link on the slide and on our website. In the upper right corner, please find and click the green Register button to get started. When creating a new account, it's important to remember that you're creating an account for your entire organization, not an individual. Each organization should only have one SurveyMonkey account. Once you click the Register button, you will move to step 1, where you will be asked to provide your name, as well as an email address and password. Please make sure that this login information is shared with any relevant staff who may need to access the account in the future. Once submitted, step 2 is to check the email you provided for a verification email with a link that you can click to finish registering. After you click the link in the verification email, your account will be created and you can move on to step 3, which is completing the eligibility profile for your organization. This eligibility profile essentially tells SurveyMonkey what kind of organization you are, so it knows which grants you're eligible for. It's important that you fill this out correctly, as our department uses the SurveyMonkey Apply system for many different types of applications outside of grants. In the eligibility profile, you will need to provide the following: what type of applicant you are. All applicants should select organization. The type of organization must be one of the following: a 501c3 nonprofit organization, a fiscally sponsored organization, or a municipality or tribal government. Then you will need to provide your organization name, your FEIN number, DUNS number, address, supervisorial district, main phone number, and main email address. Please note, as stated before, you must select organization when asked what type of applicant you are. No grant applications will be visible until the eligibility profile is complete. Once your eligibility profile is completed, you will have access to the main toolbar depicted here on this slide. Let's review the 3 functions you will use most: My Account, Programs, and My Applications. So in My Account, you have a profile picture, personal info, your site and notification settings, your time zone and preferred language, and your eligibility profile, which should be updated if the organization moves or any contact information change. Just highlighting this time zone. You want to make sure the time zone is correct so that it aligns with the time zone of the open date and due date of the application you're working on. Programs, there you will find the home page for open and available grants. When opening new applications, you'll do so here, and it may be mostly blank outside of the grant season, so do note that. In the My Applications menu, this is the home page for all your open applications. Your past applications will be available until they're archived, and all open OGP, CIAG, AIP applications can be reviewed and accessed here. Please note that in order to access My Account, you will need to click on your name in the toolbar first. Here is the view from the Programs menu. And here on screen is an example of what the CIAG program looks like once you click the Programs button in the main toolbar. Clicking on the Apply button will create the application for you to complete. Here are some final tips for success. Create a profile for your organization, not an individual staff member. Keep login information in an accessible place for all necessary staff. Draft application responses in a Word document and then paste them into the application later. And submit applications 3 to 5 days in advance of the deadline to allow time to resolve any technical issues. Filling out this application will take some time. You may want to save and come back to it. When you return to resume the application, just sign back into SM Apply, find the application and click Continue, which is a green button for the CIAG grant that you've started. In this image, you see how you can track progress in completing the application task and how you can add a collaborator to your application. In the project budget task, the CIAG request amount that you entered earlier in the project request and organizational budget task will be autofilled. If you're not seeing it autofilled, hit previous and then next. If you are still not seeing it, make sure that the project request and organizational budget task from earlier in the application is marked complete and that the green circle is completely filled in. New this year, you will not need to fill out a budget with amounts that add up to your request. Instead, just select the expense categories that your budget will include. It's extremely important that you provide budget expense explanations specifically for other costs, but also for anything you'd like to provide greater context for. This step is crucial for panelists' understanding and frequently plays a large role in shaping their opinion of your project plan. Your budget explanation should correspond to the project narrative you include elsewhere in the application. Once again, the grant request amount you entered in the project request and organizational budget task or budget size task will auto-populate at the top of the income table. This income table should be used to indicate the matching funds you will raise for the proposed project. Enter the cash match project income for your proposed project during the grant period. Show only the income specific to the proposal. Do not enter your organization's annual budget. Do not include in-kind income for your one-to-one cash match requirement. In-kind can be included for anything above your one-to-one cash match. Provide context for your project budget below in the budget income explanation section. The meets or exceeds requirement will note an error until the minimum matching funds has been entered. Note, the cash match can exceed the CIAG fund request, but it has to at least equal it. And another note, just for formatting, do not enter dollar signs, commas, or decimals in the table. All right, moving into some application tips. So copy and paste your answers from Word. There are character limits, not word limits. More is not necessarily better. Provide facts and information about your organization that allow the panelists to understand the vision and long-term planning that you're laying out in the application. Highlight your organizational goals. How is your programming unique? Who do you serve? What do you uniquely provide to LA County residents? How have you addressed challenges? How is your staff and leadership trained and qualified to lead the project? Be transparent. And be clear about what will help you achieve the goals of your project. Take your time to craft a project narrative with a plan that details how you will use the funding, who it will serve, and how you will evaluate the achievements of the projects you produce. Additionally, pay special attention to the questions that ask what your internal and external strategies and activities are and how they are being integrated into the work to respond to the need for cultural equity and inclusion in the LA County arts sector. This is not the time for hyperbole or repetition of points. And don't be overly verbose. Answer each of the questions and move on. Be additive and not repetitive. Keep in mind, panelists are asked to base their scores on the information presented in the application, not on what they assume about your organization. And just think about why the panelists should care. Connect the dots for the reader. Consistency and clarity are both key. Always explain acronyms and technical terms for the layperson. And of course, proofread and have someone else read the application before submitting it. In the section that asks you to describe your community audience, you'll also be asked to describe the activities and strategies that you have implemented or are planning to implement in the future around the values of cultural equity and inclusion in the arts. See the application instructions to review what the new questions are. Everyone answers this differently based on their organization, but please provide as much detail as you can. Paint the picture and be more specific than just providing the demographics of the county. You're not serving the whole county of Los Angeles. Use census data, use survey data, give as much quantitative info as you can capture about your audience and participants. Be creative in your explanation. Paint a picture of who your audience is, where they come from, why they attend or participate in your events or program. Help panelists understand how you reach out to audiences and provide programs and services. If you've made changes that speak to your cultural equity vision, highlight those in your response to the questions. How do you determine what your program will entail each session? Is your organization using survey data? Do you ask your attendees how they felt about the events, performances, exhibits they attended? The panel will want to understand how you determine what will be and what is important to the community or audience you describe. Please note, panelists only review this one application and they do not have access to your prior applications, reports, or other organizational information. They may review your website or social media, but that's not a requirement. Articulate your commitment to cultural equity and how you're addressing this in your engagement of your community and audience. Any new outreach programs or free admission scholarship programs? Have you introduced new ways to reach new audiences that you haven't reached before? All of this information is extremely valuable to your application. Artistic documentation is crucial for evaluating the artistic quality of the applicant and project. As I mentioned before, a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 2 artistic samples must be included with the application. Provide the context of the submission in the artistic description section. This includes title, location, artist, dates, and participant impact. Select samples that demonstrate the participants actively engaging in the project. You cannot show faces of your participants, photograph from behind, blur faces, or show others viewing the artistic work created by participants. Artistic documentation helps panelists understand and see firsthand the impact of your project. All right, back to SurveyMonkey Apply. Here is how you mark your final task complete. See bottom right, mark as complete. Here is how you submit the application. So first, are you sure you want to submit? Make sure you have reviewed everything and proofread thoroughly. The submit button only becomes clickable after all the tasks are completed. And you will know you have successfully submitted when you receive a confirmation email. We are more than happy to help you with your applications. Please email us with any questions. And remember, there are no deadline extensions. The deadline is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Make sure you submit your application by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You must set your account settings on SurveyMonkey Apply to ensure they are correct. And no extensions, so please do try to get in there early into the portal. All right, that's it for this presentation. Here are some final reminders and links for reference. Please feel free to join us for the small group office hours on Monday afternoon. And thank you so much, and we hope to receive an application from your organization.